One.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Blacksters Furnace with me, Robert.
With me, Pete.
Man like Mo, full furnace.
Full
Daya.
fun.
Furnace.
I'm guessing by your comment before that you guys didn't record last week.
No, we didn't record last week, but we do have a episode from
Got one in the chamber.
that's gonna go out
Yeah.
on Monday.
So you know what? Last week I was away on a camping work trip. You know, as I was in the tent, I was just there thinking like, rah, this is how Abraham and them man would have been living in tents. We were living in the tents.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, yo, babe, you're my Abrahamic wife. We're doing Abrahamic living right now, bro.
I bet she didn't call you Lord.
Yeah, she did.
Yo.
She goes to other things too, you know what I'm saying? Ooh!
Yo.
Yeah, you walked into that one.
I kind of set myself up.
But yeah, it was interesting just thinking like, right, this is how these men used to live back in the day. They used to just have a tent, just pitch it up.
Mm.
Kind of cool.
Yeah. Do you know? I don't quite know how the HTB tents are and stuff. Yeah. Man dropped the whole name. I don't know how the tents are and that. but I think I have always assumed that our perception of tent and their reality of tent is different. Because when they pitched a tent, it was my understanding is almost like that was home, so it had homely comforts and stuff. It's not just like one of them pop-up tents with a sleeping bag, like that. Like there was a couch, there were rugs, there was stuff in it that was at home. Because even the tabernacle was pitched in the tent. And so I almost
I
assumed,
wonder.
I almost assumed it to be like a circus big top or something like, not necessarily a big top, but like a circus type of tent, where you can have a bunch of stuff in it.
I wonder if Abraham's situation was a bit more permanent because he sort of was going, not knowing where he was going, but he was heading somewhere where he could stop on the way, as it were. But then Moses, they knew they were only going to be there for X amount of time. Like they had to be ready to go because when they saw the pillar move, they had to follow.
Yeah.
But no.
Because even with Israel, when he went back to see Esau, and Esau was like, "Yo, like let my guys go in front of you," and Jacob was like, "Nah, like I've got young people with me and young kids." Like they pitched the tent and his whole camp lived there for some time, and I was just like, "Yo, like this must have been substantial." And even when Rachel, in her tent, she had dug the earth and then she was sitting on like the camel skin. So I'm like, all right, the structure might have been more permanent. I mean, more substantial than what I am aware of, anyways. But yeah, no, that's beside the point. The same living of like temporary accommodations where that you can break it down and kind of move on. It's still like relevant.
Yeah. Shout out to the tent gang.
I don't know how the man do it.
Would you guys go like camping with your kids and stuff?
So I think Noah would be more inclined than Leia.
You've done a caravan before, haven't you?
Yeah. We did a caravan. They all loved it, and it was literally right beside the beach and stuff. But that was the first time that the kids were sleeping in the same room as each other. So the first night we had put them down to sleep at 7. They didn't sleep till about 10 because they just kept on talking with each other. But now they're just like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to bed. So they've done a caravan and they enjoyed it. They wanted to go back actually. But I know that Leia is so precious when it comes to like bugs and insects and stuff like that. If she's going to be in the tent, yeah, she's going to be so paranoid.
How about for you, Peter?
I mean, Zara would do it. Anita's the one that Aluta would not. I don't think she would get her head around the fact that we're sleeping outside when we have a roof.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I do intend to at some point. Like,
I mean, that's basically what a house is.
Sorry.
That's basically what a house is.
No, this is what I mean. Like, why would you leave a house and go and sleep in a tent? Like,
No, but
she wouldn't get rid
but
of
I'm saying the tent is basically a house.
Yeah, well, it's not. It's material stuff.
Basically.
Yeah, I do intend to like see how Z would do, like just camp in a garden or something. And then if that goes well, take it. You know. To be fair, I'm not the best camper myself. Like what we did when we were training wasn't really camping. It was like a waterproof sheet. You hang between trees and you dig yourself a little 3 foot, 2 foot trench. You sleep in it. So it wasn't quite camping, but I like that, to be fair. So, yeah.
Okay. You enjoying yourself there, Moses?
It's cookies. If you guys
Cool.
are hearing the crunch.
Who's in the hot seat?
Well, you man can hear it.
Yes,
Now
sir.
we can hear it.
Oh, raw.
You're chewing like someone owes you an apology.
No,
I think I'm in the hot seat. I think I'm in the hot seat.
Mo should be in the hot seat. The thing I've got an offensive question, to be fair. So
Raw.
cool.
All right.
So, can I go first?
Go for it.
I say offensive question. It's just the way I thought about it was offensive, but I can't say it offensively. So yeah.
Yes, you can.
No. My question is just: are you being your best self? And if you are, how are you sustaining it? If you are not, what's holding you back?
That's a good question.
With that one.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think that's a very good question. Because what does your best look like? And in what area of life is it? Holistically, is it spiritually? Is it physically? Is it husband? Like, one thing that I think is holding me back is sleep. The more sleep that I get, the better I feel the more I am able to give to things. So trying to get my sleep in a good space. A piece of chocolate just melted into my clothes. So now it looks like I got a poo stain on my
We
shorts.
didn't need the explanation. We could have. We got the idea. We got the idea.
Try to cut that out of the podcast. So yeah, I think sleep would do good, but I think it's difficult because I'm now trying to evaluate the different areas of my life. I think I am not doing my best, but I am doing above average. So it feels like percentages. I can say I'm doing about 80%.
Okay.
I'm not quite at 100. And the reason I'll say 80% is I'm a big advocate for building habits for things that you want to do, which would necessitate you knowing the end towards which you want to work towards, like where you want to go, and then trying to build habits to kind of keep you going there. So even on an off day, by virtue of just following these habits, you're still heading in that direction. So it's a case of I want to live a physically healthier lifestyle. I may not be able to get to the gym, but if I recognize that I'm not in the gym, I may then watch what I'm eating extra cautiously, be extra cautious around what I'm eating to kind of take into consideration the fact that I didn't get into the gym. So because I have been able to identify the things that I want to work towards and having these micro goals, these habits, I've been able to set up a routine where it's like, all right, relationally, trying to make sure that certain things are in place and stuff like that. But I haven't been able to commit fully to it because of fatigue. So I'm still consistently working towards them, but the vim with which I would like to be able to put behind them hasn't been there because I'm feeling sluggish. So yeah, I would say I'm at about 80%, which I'm happy with. It hasn't dipped. I'm still present. I'm still doing different things. I'm still like consistently chipping away, work, health, family, different things. So yeah, it's like, yeah, I'll say about 80%. And if I'm able to sleep adequately, I should be able to kick it more so towards the 90, 95, 100%.
It's interesting that you're able to identify almost like, there's this one hurdle sort of thing. I know it's not, you're not saying as soon as you start sleeping you're going to be 2000, but
Yeah.
it's I think it's good that you're able to even identify, oh, this is one area which
Yeah.
it's on. But yeah, no, it's a good answer. I'm happy with it. Yeah.
And even into that end, two books that I would highly recommend is the 12-week year and Atomic Habits. So Atomic Habits is just very much about not seeing a goal as a mass or seeing a destination as a mass, but breaking them down into micro habits, but also even considering what is the keystone habit that will trigger all the other habits. So it's like, if you want to get healthy and there was an example where it's like, there was this athlete who trains every day at 5 o'clock, and when asked about her habit, she said her habit wasn't going to the gym at 5 o'clock, but getting into the taxi at like 4:45. So look, that was her only goal. So long as she got into that taxi, she knew she was going to work out. The taxi was booked, like prepped and stuff, and just getting into that. And so yeah, and she knows that once she gets into the gym, it's going to trigger a workout. After the workout, it's going to trigger shower, eat, blah, 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 and then kind of rolls into the day. So it's almost like a domino effect with your habits. So building those habits. And then the 12-week year is like, some people, because they have a yearly goal, they kind of take the first 6 to 9 months not doing anything and then trying to plow through the whole yearly goal in the last 3 months. But if you were to break your year down into 12 weeks, so it'll literally be like just under a quarter, and take each week as a month, and then think, what will I need to do in each week to work towards the goal that I want to get at the end of the year? So that then helps you get the goal, and then you can break it down into the habits that will lead to that goal. And then you've got 12 weeks to action it, 1 week to review it, and then tweak it, and then another 12 weeks to action it, and then kind of go in that cycle. So it gives you a structure to be able to evaluate things and to build habits and stuff to kind of go forward.
Dope.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. That's good. My question for you, Moses, is what do you think would be different, or what differences could you anticipate seeing in marriage if we lived to like 200 or 300 years of age? I asked this because I was thinking about this today. I feel like 60, 70 years, in a lifetime, that's a good amount of time to be married to someone. If you're gonna add another 200 years on top of that, it's like you've done everything.
Yeah. I think, travel the world 20 times over. One thing that comes to me immediately is people won't put almost like an expiration date on when they need to get married or when they need to be married by. Because now, as soon as you start hitting your 40s, if you're single, you're almost like, oh, am I ever gonna find this person? Am I just gonna die alone? But if we're living to like over 200, that I've still got over 200 years, give or take, to find this person. It may, in a secular sense, it may encourage messing about more. to be sure that this is the person that I want to spend the next 200 years with. Because it is a long period of time. I do feel like it would so yeah, those are two things. It would slow down the rush to get married because you've got more time. It may, and in that slowing down of the time, it may cause people to just think, oh yeah, I can sow my wild oats. I've still got 200 years to kind of find the right one and settle down and stuff. But I think biblically, if we are to still marry at the ages that we are marrying now, we will more likely be aware of the generational impact of our actions. So like we will be living to see our great grandchildren, depending on at what age our children go on to have kids. So there may be more of a legacy and a lineage where like we could actually sit down with them that were in, like slaves and that, and actually hear those stories, or even because I think people that were in the Holocaust and survived the Holocaust are still like dying out. I think there's the last of them still dying out. There may be more of them who had survived and be able to kind of like share these stories. So I think our oral traditions and stories will be passed down a lot more. We may have more ties to our history. So I think the generational impact will be a lot stronger. And I think it would. I think we would feel the burden of love even more. Because yeah, like even now, when you hear someone has been married for 80 years, you're like, rah, 80 years. Like, how did you not do it? And to hear, oh, we've been married for 200 years. To be like, yo, how did you man do it? So I think the burden of love would be a lot more apparent. We'll recognize that, yo, like till death do us part, like mad. I got married at like 25. I got married at 23, but it's like random age. I got married at 30. Till death do us part. I've got like another 200 odd years. Like, yeah, the weight of the covenant would be more significant because of the lifespan. So yeah, I think those things come to mind immediately. Less rush, potentially more sleeping around, generational impacts, and the weight of love being more precedent, or we'll see the impact a lot more. And I think if Jesus still died at 33, knowing that a normal lifespan is like over 200, that would literally be like he didn't even live a quarter of his life for us. And yeah, like there will be a different significance to that sacrifice. Or no, not a different significance, because the significance will remain the same, but there may be a different weight that we associate with it just based on the timeline of lifespan. Yeah.
Interesting thoughts. And if you're going to add, Peter?
Not necessarily. I think it's interesting. I thought about it slightly differently, because I thought I had a question as to, what does that mean for the rest of the biological things that are affected by time. For instance, childbearing age in women, will that still cut off at, with menopause still hitting around that 40 to 50 mark? If that is still the case, then I think a lot of the things we do, like well, maybe this is just me, but I don't think a lot of us think in terms of we're going to live for 80, 90 years, and so
Yeah.
like things like I don't I wonder if those things aren't affected and everyone's still growing at the rate they're growing, puberty still occurs at the rate it does, whether or
Yeah.
not we'd even think along those lines, because one of the things you get married, you want to have kids. Well, nowadays, not so much, but marriage and kids were time boxed because there was a
Mhm.
clicking clock, a clicking clock, a clicking. What?
Ticking clock.
Ticking clock.
A ticking clock. I am tired, evidently. There was a ticking clock, going, and so I wonder if those things would affect it. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Because if menopause was still at the same age, then literally again, you'd have a quarter of your life of fertility, and then the rest just live. And if you're living to
And the rest would be
200,
enjoying your children,
Yeah.
enjoying your children's children. Like literally, that part of things would still be true, and you'd almost be young enough to keep up. If
Yeah.
if you're living to 200 and you're not, a vegetable by then yeah. But yeah, anyway.
It's cool.
And yeah, I think it would quite possibly have an impact on the way that we treat the earth.
If we know what's
Nah,
going
let's do this straight.
No, because I think like agriculture and stuff like that, we would almost have this sense of like we've got 200 years to live. But it could, as Peter said, right? As Peter rightly said, I'm not sitting here thinking, oh, I could die at 80, I could die at 90. Like, what's the normal life expectancy? I'm just
The
like, I
other
want
thing
to
as
die.
well, like I'm getting into my Thanos bag now because we'd have more people around for longer.
Yes.
So the burden of food, like a lot of the destruction that we are currently doing is because it's necessitated almost like to feed the earth, all the chicken that we've been eating, the practices that they now use that are so detrimental have only been designed because the demand was so high. And so if you've got people still around for that long, I wonder if that would even be the concern. It would just be we've still got so many mouths to feed. There's still so much demand. It might even get worse. We might destroy it sooner. Elon Musk might have to get us out.
Hey, you might have to impose the one family one child rule or something like that. Where crazy.
All right, let's get into today's topic.
Go.
Let's try. I'm gonna try and do this without saying any names because I don't want no trouble for myself, bro.
If you say a name, just stop and then continue.
Okay, no.
Give
Rewind.
Peter
Give me a little
space
moment.
to.
Okay.
Cut it out seamlessly.
It's not so much a name. I just try to, I'll talk about afterwards. So
I was gonna say probably the more you give about how you're not trying to give away.
yeah. So that's how. So there's this pastor I know, cool guy.
Stress.
So there's this pastor I know, pretty cool guy, cool geezer, all of that good stuff. His wife,
Jezebel.
not so much that she's a Jezebel. And, I had a conversation with Andrea about her, and I was so happy that she agreed. Like I was like, babe, what do you think about so-and-so? And she was like, why? What do you think about so-and-so?
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Sometimes you ain't even got to say it, you just got to look at each other.
Yeah. And so the conclusion that we came to, how can I put this? We both felt like the pastor's wife was a fraud.
Oh dear gosh.
So okay, fraud in the sense of being a pastor's wife, you could be a pastor's wife because you've got the anointing and you're the helpmeet for the pastor. Or you can be a pastor's wife because you married a pastor. Yeah, there's a difference.
Why am I getting Megan good vibes?
Yeah, make it good. Make it good.
Oh, relax, man. Relax. I don't know her that well to make that joke. But yeah. I
And
don't
you,
know. I've heard that well to make that joke. Anyway.
and, you know, I've heard this pastor's wife. You know, if you're the pastor's wife, you're going to be standing up and speaking in front of the masses sometimes.
You don't have to, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think she enjoys being at the front of people.
Mm.
But then when she opens her mouth, I'm like, you know,
And
it's
you're right.
not on you.
And you're right.
It's like, no, you're a fraud. You're a fraud,
No,
and it annoys me, but I'm over it. And then, but
definitely not.
it annoys Andrea too, so I'm happy.
You're not alone.
Man's just
And so I wanted to have a conversation. Okay, firstly, a conversation about what do you think are the good qualities of a pastor's wife, or broaden it out maybe a bit more. What do you think are the qualities? Oh no, okay. What? Give me a second. Let me think about this.
What makes
All right.
a good pastor's wife?
No. Forget the pastor's wife because that one there. What qualities do you think a woman needs in order to be a good wife to a man that is about his ministry, like proper?
Mm. And when we say about his ministry, are we saying in like a pastoral
In like any
capacity?
sense, any sense, like like
Okay.
you know what God's called you to do, you know what's called your quote unquote ministry to be. Are there like any like overarching qualities that a wife needs to have to help me to a ministering man?
That's interesting. I think it goes without saying a prayerful wife. I would hope that her husband would be a prayerful husband. Just simply because by virtue of being very intentional about ministry, it means that your family is going to be opened up to spiritual attacks. And your marriage is going to be potentially susceptible to different attacks as well, and your children and blah blah blah. And in as much as the head of the household, it kind of falls on your shoulders to pray and stuff like that, to have that help meet, to have that support where both of you are standing together to pray, where you're going out ministering and like wife will bust two tongues on your behalf, keep you prayed up and stuff in the background, and likewise you do for her. I would hope that there would be, for a wife whose husband is gun-ho about his ministry, there will be a clear sense of calling on her life. And it doesn't have to be whatever he's doing, but she would have a sense of, this is what God has called me to do. So she doesn't always live in the shadow of the husband, but she's able to fully exercise and operate in her ministry. Her ministry literally could just be, I'm here to raise up the children. This is my conviction that God has given me. Or it could be, there's another ministry that I'm setting up specifically for women or whatever, and this is what God has called me to do. So both of them having a clear sense of calling, and going for it. Now, this calling may develop. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, but it could develop. It could but her also walking in the fullness of who God has called her to be. And then I think that's just stuff like supportive cheerleaders, trying to utilize each other's skills and capacities to the best. So I think it will be more of a teamwork conversation than of a wife characteristic conversation. So it'll be very much like how they work in tandem. Because even as he is going out to do ministry, he needs to remember that his family is his first ministry. And so how is he serving them, and how are they working in tandem to ensure that each other's ministries are flourishing in that way? So yeah, I'll say it'll be more of a teamwork conversation than an individual conversation for me. My approach would be.
What
But
do you
yeah,
think,
those are
Lee?
my initial thoughts, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I think on the one hand, I actually don't like the idea that pastor's wife is his own position in church.
Mm,
Like, I feel like there's something there's something disingenuous, there's something hero worshipy about that.
mm,
So that in and of itself sort of rubs me the wrong way, slightly. Um, but that said, I think it's difficult because when it's ministry and it's the man, for instance, is called to ministry. I think that's something that you kind of do it together. You kind of
mm,
have to do it together, and that might look like, you know, like Mo said, one person being there for the kids for a season, but almost allowing for the man or whatever to go and to do the things that he needs to do. Like a pastor's job is difficult, and I'm thinking both in terms of the office of the pastoral office, and also
mhm,
like the leader of a church, for instance, because
mm.
it is difficult and it is hard to be a father to that many people. And to some extent, that's what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to, try and then you're not fathering them, but you are their
A
shepherd.
spiritual leader, yeah.
And you've got your own kids, or you've got your own wife, you've got your own thing to. So there's sacrifice on your side, but there's sacrifice that the woman needs to make as well, and needs to be
Mm,
aware of, needs to be willing to, So it's. I think the two go hand in hand. One might be the face, always speaking, the pastor in the front, but that wife is part of that ministry. I don't know, I
mm,
see it as such, and it's just she can be part of that ministry and not be the one in the front. She can be part of that ministry and not be the one, doing the pastoral cause, but she is part of that ministry in affording him the luxury of doing that by taking care
yeah.
of the other things
Yeah.
that need to be taken care of, you know. And then that's not to get into gender roles or none of that nonsense. It's just saying
Mm,
both of them are in it together. Ideally, both of them are in it together because that marriage is what's doing the ministry. It's not the pastor, and it's not,
yeah.
that's why I really disdain that whole pastor's wife thing. But yeah, I just think they're both in it together. So a woman that's ready to do that, that's ready to be part of this in whatever capacity she's needed, I think is the thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, are you saying that
So
you feel?
I was gonna say as well, sorry, quickly. Um, I would like to think that even in that, a recognition of boundaries,
Mm.
where it's like when you are overstepping your your position, not just for the woman, but for the man as well. So it's like if random example, if your wife is almost running like a female ministry and then you're almost coming black, now I think girls should be like this, so you should run it. It's like, bro, you're overstepping your boundaries right now. Just chill. Um yes, Leia?
Mm.
I think you're gonna push back on something, Rob.
Oh no, no, not so much pushback. You okay,
So
man?
yeah, I was gonna say, because practically I see ministries that have been derailed because one partner has overstepped the boundary and almost usurped control from the other unknowingly because they've done that. But yeah, my daughter's just awake, so give me.
No,
No worries.
okay.
Yeah. So I was going to ask. So if you, so you don't think that, like, as a woman, if you get married to a pastor, there'll be certain expectations on you, or you think that there should be no expectations on the wife of a pastor?
Not on her for being the wife. Like there should be expectations of the marriage. Like I just see it as I think making the distinction of pastor's wife, like creating that position, is problematic because it should be both of them. It should be the marriage, and again, it doesn't have to necessarily look like they're both up there preaching or they're
Mm.
both up there pastoring in whatever capacity, but I think it's both of them, and I think that if we are to have any expectations, it should be expectations of both of them in whatever, in being leaders and being pastors. They're both responsible for whatever those expectations are. I don't think it should be. I don't think a pastor's wife should be a certain way. If that makes sense, because I don't like the idea of pastor's wife. Like I think of it in like fighters, right? Fighting is slightly different because it's inherently selfish, or at least being a fighter is inherently selfish in that everything that you have to do in, if this is your means of providing, is self-serving. Your training, your eating, you're going in there to fight, you're on your own. Everything is focused on one. However, what you will find is, especially with married fighters and fighters with kids, is actually you going to the training camp, you being away, you being injured, the wife is doing her part. If it's she's nursing you, if it's she's taking the care of the kids, she's watching the kids while you are out training, all of these things. And there's no position fighter's wife, but there's an understanding that when the fighter stands in there, his entire family is behind him. And whether that is
Mm.
by allowing him to go and train, whether that is by nursing him back to health, whether that is, any number of things that they do, in doing that, they are part of, that's they're part of the fighter, and it's not a part fighter's wife and a fighter. And that I think the same for a pastor. Shouldn't be a pastor's wife and then the pastor. It's they are all part of that ministry. They are one.
Oh no, but I think there's that understanding that the pastor's wife is part of that ministry, and I guess people in the church look to the pastor's wife almost for like a more gentler, feminine
As an
part of.
example, okay. Then,
If that
then
makes
just be a
sense.
good wife. Yeah, then just be a good wife. And I guess then the question becomes, what is a good wife?
Not making good. I'm kidding. I'm
Relax,
kidding.
relax.
I'm kidding. Yeah, she was a good wife, but then the pressure was too much.
She's saving Jonathan Majors now, isn't she?
Come on.
Um, yeah, no, being a good wife, I think is because there's being supportive, there's being respectable, and being a representative of your family, being a representative of your husband, whatever that looks like. But again, I think it's I guess.
So see how the Bible says that those who teach will be judged more harshly.
Hmm.
Do you think that falls on
Extends to the
the,
wife.
the teachers' wives as well?
I think so. I think so because
So there is like an extra expectation being the wife of a teacher slash pastor slash whatever.
maybe not so much, because I think if the guy is teaching, you can't control what comes out of his mouth. If that makes sense, like you can't control what comes out of a person's, what they
But you can,
teach.
but you can control who you marry to make sure that his doctrine is good before you marry.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think because there is also the reality that God will hold us accountable for, our own crap. So I don't know if I'd say that extends to the wife, because that's specific to carrying out the day to day. If the wife's up there preaching or teaching, then yeah, then of course you're also a teacher. But if the wife's part to play in that particular marriage, under those specific sets of circumstances, is taking care of the kids, taking care on the home front, supporting your husband, encouraging him, being his peace, as it were, then I don't think you get harsher judgment for that, because you're not teaching. So I think that's slightly different. But I guess the pastor's wife should be a good wife, because you are part of leadership or you're part of ministry. And I think being a good wife is unique to your marriage, But it's being a good partner to your husband, and whatever that marriage needs you to do, you do, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's hard to come up with a generic answer, I think.
Do you think that what you felt like what God was calling you to do played a part in you picking Anita to be your wife specifically?
Not necessarily. In part because I didn't know what God wanted me to do at the time
Mm.
fully. I sort of knew it was sort of God leading to a wife as opposed to God leading down a certain road and then therefore picking a certain wife. So no, I didn't really necessarily know what I was being called to in those times. But that didn't affect the choice of partner on my part anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that
What about yourself though?
oh
I
me?
I know you're not a pastor, but like would what God puts on your heart to do with your sort of ministries, as it were, ministry being, I think, you doing what God has called you to do.
Yeah.
Did that affect your choice of Drea?
I think no. I think I think part of the reason I chose her was because I could see how she would be a good helpmeet for what I needed or what I felt like God was calling me to do.
Okay.
So like it wasn't like I was trying to slot her into my plans, nor was it I was changing my plans so I could be with her. It just felt like the two were coming together. And so it made sense,
Mm.
which is great.
It is a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. And also I felt like in what I could see or felt like she was going to do ministry wise, I felt like I could be a good helpmeet for her in doing that as well.
Mm.
Um, yeah, because she's very much the out front superstar, and not very much the guy at the back, And it's this, and I think that at least for us, that dynamic works really well. I know for some guys, like the thought of the woman being the one at the front, it makes them burn inside.
Wife can't be the superstar. They gotta be the superstar.
I was gonna say as well. I feel like we are who we are because we have been impacted directly by our spouses, and so Peter, you dated Anita for a significantly long amount of time before you actually got married to her, and so arguably
No hanky
you
panky, no ringy, no dingy. We still kept it. So yeah.
said with the most amount of pride.
See purity culture at its finest.
At its finest.
Nah, because you just said it like we were cohabitating before we got married.
Like
Put the
FYI.
clarification in there.
But arguably, you wouldn't be the Peter you are now outside of that time of courtship.
Yeah.
And so, even for the ministry you have now, God has directly and indirectly used her in shaping you for this ministry now. And that's definitely one thing that I see in ministry, especially within a marital covenant like sense. We are directly shaped by in this covenant, in this marriage, and being more molded more and more into who God has called us to be by virtue of who we are paired with.
How do you feel like you've been shaped for ministry by Jamelia?
Bro, where do I start? I was gonna say as well, I do feel like you and Drea picked I agree with what you said in that you had a view to what you felt God was calling you to do in you picking each other. There was a mutual attraction and almost this affirmation of like, yo, like there is synergy within how God is calling us and how we kind of want to live out life and stuff. Yeah, Peter and I, on the other hand, there wasn't a sense of, oh no, this is what it's going to be, and you're going to be this person. Like I've heard someone legit say his wife is just meant to be a helpmeet. But on all of these things, when we get to heaven, I'm not even going to be your husband and that. So you're only here to help me fulfill my purpose. And I'm like, bro, is this the mentality you're trying to enter a relationship with?
Come on.
Like, your purpose is to help me fulfill my purpose, and that's it.
Then we go our separate ways.
Raw. Where this fuck, bro?
We went offline to find the fly.
The fly is hefty, you know.
The fly took more offline.
The fly is hefty. It's one of them green bottle flies, like.
It's one of those movie scenes. You just hear commotion, and then the camera goes out. When the camera comes back on, most flatlined.
Still about. But I weren't trying to swat in front of the camera and that. How have I been changed in my relationship with Gems? I feel like there has been so much. There's been so much discovering myself, recognizing how self-centered I have been historically, trying to, even the way that I parent, recognizing that I have the African tendency of, you see, when you hit JSS 1, and then the JSS 3 guys are making you fetch water, and then you're in JSS 1 just like, yo, when I hit JSS 3, I'm gonna give it to these guys. And there's almost this like waiting to be in a senior position to be able to hand down the stuff that you received, and it's back. Bro, fam, and unlearning like when they say Africans only have kids so that they can get slaves, they can get servants, to be like, yo, like, just because I'm sitting here and like the remote's over there doesn't mean I need to call my child from upstairs to come get the remote for me. I can do it myself. But also unlearning some of the stuff that I have learned and stuff like that. And like, she has been a major part of that learning process. Yeah, like there's been a lot. I can't go into it now. But the molding has been a lot and painful. I would add painful, yeah. I'm still about.
Until that fly gets its wings on you.
Yeah. Do you think that ideally in a marriage the husband should be at a higher quote unquote spiritual / knowledge level than the wife?
No.
To be able to lead the household in a Christ-like way? Well,
not necessarily. I think the man should always be striving for that. So if there's a man and he's at the very least striving towards knowing God better, striving towards knowing God's will, striving towards following God's will, then I think that suffices, because that would require a wife. You know, for instance, so the insinuation from your question being, can the wife be more spiritually mature, or can the wife be at a higher level spiritually than the man? If the man is that's my bare minimum. You're a man that's striving after God. If the man is there and the woman is more mature, she trusts not necessarily the man, she trusts God to work through the man, if that makes sense. And so her submitting to the man isn't because of the man, and it really should never be. It's because of God, and in trusting that in her submitting to this man as God has directed her to, God is able to lead through this man, despite maybe her being more advanced, more mature, more experienced, whatever the case in her spirituality. So no, I don't necessarily think the man has to be ahead, whatever that means. But I think if the man is striving after God, that's enough. That's enough.
So, Spanner,
Not my
let's
wife.
take.
My wife. No, no, I was gonna say my wife. My daughter. Not my daughter. She needs to marry a saint.
What's it? Sinless perfection. So I was gonna say, so if we take it from a fighting perspective, and as a husband, you see it as your duty to protect your wife. So if like, would you then say you need to be physically stronger to do that, to protect, to fight if someone was to break into the house, to be able to fend them off without your wife having to worry about it? Would you say you need to be stronger?
I would say that in those kind of situations, my wife's ability shouldn't affect my ability to protect the family.
Nice. Nice.
What if you marry?
You need to be strong. Yeah.
What if you marry like a Ronda Rousey type, or you got married to like I don't know, Zhang Wei Li, you know, the women's featherweight.
You start being the one to beat up the guy because
Because
I've got
better at it. Like she's
But
literally better at it.
she might be the last defense. If you go and you get whooped, then they meet her.
But you are
She's the
going to
final
get
boss.
whooped. She won't. Why?
She's the final. Nah, but picture that. Man comes into the bedroom.
Assigned whooping.
Man comes into this bedroom, and you're all
Babe,
hunched.
take care of him.
You're all hunched in the thing, covering yourself under the duvet, and the wife is.
You're like,
You're just gonna be sitting there popcorn.
Oi low. You know, do your thing.
Handle your thing.
nah.
Go earn your pay slip.
You have to at least like get beaten up to say that at least you tried. You know, because I think there's this perception that if you want to be the protector of your household, it means automatically you're going to win every altercation and every fight that you're going to be in. It's not the case.
Yeah, but if you don't, then how you protecting your household?
No, but at least you tried. You know, at least you can say you tried to the best of your abilities. But your abilities were just not enough.
You want to take a beating for pride. You want to take a beating to say you took the beating at least.
Because
you soften them up for her.
I'm bringing this up because it's like if like you were married to a Ronda Rousey or someone like that, I'm not necessarily thinking that you would think I need to be stronger than her, but almost like I still need to be strong enough to defend her. So I may not necessarily need to be on her level. It's like if one skinny guy comes into the house, I'm whooping him. But if one hench don comes in, hey babes, I know my pay grade. This is for you. But it's a case of like being strong enough in order to defend it. And I think it kind of is comparable to on a spiritual level, where it's like you don't need to be the Samson in the house, but you need to be able to hold it down.
I mean,
you need to be able to lead.
We talk about protecting though, like in today's society, are we really doing that much physical protection of our families?
Bro, if you live in South London, you are.
If you live in South, fair. If you live in South,
I mean, the only protection that we're doing right now is like firewalls and them things there, and like trying to prevent hackers and all of them things. But because the journey.
The thing is, even though the chance of us ever having to fight is very low, you don't want to be caught at that one time.
It's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener
in the war. Come on.
Yeah.
So just that comparison, and that yes, I don't need to be stronger than my wife, but I need to be strong enough to protect her. I don't need to be the person earning the most amount of money in the house, but I need to be a good steward over what comes into the house. I don't need to be the person who's always like up at 5 a.m. interceding on behalf of the nations and blah, blah, blah. But I need to be able to stand whenever something's coming against my family.
So there's sort of a pre-question in that, what do you guys subscribe to, egalitarianism or complementarianism in terms of authority in the marriage? So are you guys, we are, there are specific gender roles that we need to fulfill, or are you, bring your skills to the table and let's play the hands we're dealt? Which
I
one
think-
are you guys?
I think outside of breastfeeding and birthing kids, everything's on the table.
I do feel like it's an amalgamation of the two, in that there are like, I take my role as the head seriously. Like, my first ministry is to my wife. I am to love her as Christ loves the church. That is a command straight to the husbands. And it's like, he laid down his life for people who are calling out, crucify him. And the church's response to Jesus is a response to what he has done for them. So it's like Jesus was the one who reached out his hand, and then the church reaches out her hand in response. And even saying a man who finds a wife finds a good thing, there's almost this impetus from the man where it's just like, you're stepping out, you're meant to be protecting, you're meant to be doing these things. And so I see it as there's been a responsibility, a biblical responsibility laid out on the husband over his household. But within the fleshing out of that, bro, you're not going, no, every husband is not going to be the best at accountant and finance and whatever. Sometimes the wife can pattern the finances better than the husband. Recognizing in your humility, like, yo, you're better at me than this, and so let's pull our resources together. But again, the husband being like, yo, okay. And it may be as well that the wife be like, I'm better at delegating, I'm better at saying, you're good at this, you're good at that, and then the husband is like, I'm just good at getting things done. So again, they can sit down and chalk it up and be like, all right, cool, who do you think should get what? So I guess, there's a responsibility that falls on the man, but the way in which it's played out, I do think is more complementary. But it doesn't deny the biblical mandate on a husband to be the head of the household and to be the person who steps out first.
I do think that, at least for me as a man, the responsibility falls on my shoulders. So like, if something goes wrong, even if it's something that Andrew was supposed to take care of, it's on me that it went wrong. And and I feel like as a man, that's part of my job in covering my wife. Be it, if it's toxic masculinity, it's toxic masculinity, there are certain things that I feel like a man should do, protect your wife. Protect your wife, take responsibility. Pull out her chair. Them like chivalry things out there,
You're pulling out chairs for Joe. You ain't pulling out chairs.
I do.
Chairs.
Walk between her and the road. All of this cute stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, fair enough.
Yeah. So I would extend that to the spiritual side as well, where it's just like, you don't need to be the best, but you need to recognize your responsibility as a husband. I agree with what you're saying, Peter, in that sometimes we can place too much emphasis on the titles, and so positionally we place more emphasis on positional authority rather than relational authority, and ministry should be more so relational authority. And so the fleshing out of the marriage will impact the fleshing out of the ministry. How supportive the wife is kind of within the marriage, and the husband is like working with the wife within the marriage, kind of spills out into the ministry. And so arguably a good quote unquote pastor's wife looks like a good quote unquote wife. Whatever
Question.
that may be. Yeah.
If a husband and a wife both feel like they've heard God say something, but it's not like on the same wavelength, should the wife always submit to the husband's hearing of God with the knowledge that she trusts that her husband does hear from God?
I think so, but then I think, like, so I really always look to, I mean, we were talking about Abraham and Sarah earlier. I look to them, right? And Sarah called Abraham Lord. So there was an element of, okay, Sarah demonstrated what this whole idea of a woman submitting was. But it was Sarah's idea that he sleeps with Hagar. It was Sarah's idea that he sends Ishmael away. It was Sarah that, and so there's this element of...
She's stupid.
No, I'm not stupid. But there's an element
I was
of
laying
being able
around. I was
to,
like,
Wow, we're going to get the
influence.
feminist comment coming through, boy.
There's an element of influence. There's an element of being able to wisely affect, or to make, to wisely influence a decision. Now, if the two of you are hearing something and you believe you are right and you believe he is wrong, but he believes he is right and he believes you're wrong, and the two can't meet in the middle, I'd say as the godly wife, you submit that to God and you say, well, I feel like he's got it, and so I'm going to, I feel like I've got it, but what he's saying, I submit because you asked me to submit, definitely. But then if there's a way to sort of speak to your husband, or implore, or influence, there's a way to get your point across, then go ahead, without, there's a way to do it without needing to usurp leadership, and without needing to disrespect, I think, almost. But if it comes down to it, I think, unfortunately, it's on the guy, I think.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it.
If it's a time sensitive situation, then I would kind of say, it falls on the guy. And some may see as, oh, what? So the guy just makes the decision, without recognizing the weight of that decision, which then falls on the man, and the implications if he's wrong. Knowing that you've just taken your whole family down this path, believing that it's God, and where I am kind of sharing this, believing that this man is a godly man who will feel sorrow, remorse, conviction, and stuff like that, and not just be like, well, it is what it is, isn't it? We're here now. But will actually feel like, like, I've just taken my family down this path, believing it was God, but it wasn't. There will be an implication in that, and he would almost kind of see the wisdom in whatever his wife was saying. If it isn't time sensitive, I have found it more beneficial to simply just go back to God and be like, God, I heard this from you, innit? So if it is you, you're going to have to tell her. And I find that what tends to happen is God tells her in some way, shape, or form. So like, even like on a practical note, coming to his house, there was one day when I felt God clearly say, like, this is the church for you. And in the service, I said to James, this is where we're coming. And I could see in her face that she wasn't ready for that. So I was just like, this is where we're coming, but I'm going to allow you to grow at your own pace into this decision, into this position that we're in. And she did a fast. She had asked me for a passage. I gave her the passage. And as she was kind of meditating and praying and going through it, she then hollered me back and was like, yeah, his house is our church. And I was like, yeah, I knew it. So now that you're on board, let's do this. And it was literally within the same week. But thankfully, that wasn't time sensitive. So it wasn't a case of, we need to jump ship tomorrow. Because I find that on a practical level, going down the route of, I'm the head, I'm just going to do it, can build in resentment from the wife's part. to be like, yo, like I'm only in this position because you thought God was saying that we need to do this, innit? And if not done sensitively and taking your wife into consideration, she could just feel as though like, yeah, she's just being ignored. She's just going on because you've said so, and she doesn't really have a say and stuff. And that can build in resentment, and that's the last thing you want in your marriage.
Yeah, I've been finding that it's important to acknowledge your wife's point of view as well, even if it's not the point of view you're going to go down.
Yeah.
That way she feels like she's been heard, and you never just that's what she said to the wayside.
Yeah.
I think as well, though, like everything you guys have said, I think the presumption being this guy is the godly guy who, even if they went with the other direction, he would still, as you said, Robert, he will still take responsibility for that in the end. I think sometimes it also comes down to that sacrificial. So this is controversial, but I think Jesus allows us to whore ourselves out. He allows the church to whore itself out to some extent, if that makes sense. So Israel, God said, if you guys do this, I'm a turn away from you and there'll be punishment. But when you cry out to me, I'll pick you out. There's an element of God allowing them to choose that which is not good for them, right? And I think sometimes it's like, if there's a decision and I have heard from God, you've heard from God, and then thinking about it, I recognize that I can exist in both situations. I can be okay here, I can be okay with your one. You will cry with my one, but you'll be okay with your one. Let's go with your one for now, if that makes sense, because there you are. It's like it's sacrificial, but for your benefit, if that makes sense. So I think that's an element as well that sometimes the guys can do in those situations. That's for you. Let's do it this way because this is what you would, this is what would not destroy you, as it were.
Yeah.
But,
And even further to your point, Hosea and Gomer.
Yeah.
Like God was like, go marry a prostitute. Mad.
Yeah. Not save a prostitute and then go marry her because she went back.
You can't save these hoes.
Try to play Captain Save.
So yeah, that is a really good point. Yeah, because like I've heard people say like God will love you to the gates of hell. Like if you're walking there, God will, like he will love you to the, like obviously that's not his desire for you. No. That's not his intention for you. He'll try everything to get you to turn around. But if you're walking there, he's going there with you, like tapping you on your shoulder, yo, turn around, I'm here. So yeah, which can be hard to swallow at times. But yeah.
Cool. That's a nice place to round up.
Cool.
Hookups.
I can go first.
Go for it.
So I've been filling a YouTube channel called Brendan Ross. Let me make sure. Yeah, Brendan Ross. He's a saxophonist. And he just got like what? Why are you laughing?
Just the way you said it, my mind was somewhere else.
Did I say it wrong?
No, you didn't. I just heard the first part and my mind went left.
He's a sexy. Yeah, no. Yeah, he's got like a couple like hour-long saxophone covers that I find really cool. Because I like my lo-fi. I like music without instrumentals. And
do you mean music without vocals?
I'm like, yeah, music without vocals. Sorry. He's got like a couple covers of Afrobeat songs as well that are really, really cool. So that's been like my work music for the past couple of weeks. So yeah, Brendan Ross, check him out.
I think my hookup is an anime, Jujutsu Kaisen.
I've been meaning to get into that, so I'm going to go into it yet.
Hidden Inventory.
Yeah.
Premature death.
I watched the last episode of the current season today, and I was just like, yeah. I like the way they started it with the like little flashback, so you've got the history. I like it. So I'm Jujutsu Kaisen.
I am currently desperately trying to not watch another YouTube channel that summarizes the manga, because then I'll
Yeah,
get so far ahead and
yeah,
I'll know where it's
yeah,
going, and not get
yeah.
interested anymore. But yeah.
Do you know what? I've fallen down the rabbit hole of watching summaries of the manga for Black Clover, because Black Clover on Crunchyroll stops at episode 170, but the manga is like way far, and it's just like they've stopped. Apparently, they're gonna release more Black Clover. When they do, that's gonna be my hookup. Even Demon Slayer, the manga is moving mad.
The manga's done.
Okay, that's
Manga's done,
okay.
yeah.
Nice. I'm trying not to watch the manga.
I made a mistake of learning about the end of Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
It made me drop off for a few things, but yeah.
I'm trying not to get into it, but yeah, I'm waiting for the animations, the anime. Robert, your team.
Cool. My hookup. I don't know if I have a hookup this week. Let me think. Give me a second. Go watch Titanic. Great film.
It's an adult film, but I'm perplexed as to why that's your hookup.
Oh, like I was talking to Andrea about it this morning, and I just remembered how good it was. So I was like, yeah, Titanic.
Before I injured my knee, my last jiu-jitsu class, the instructor was looking for music to play, and I was talking to someone else. I was like, "Oh, what should I play today for class?" And I just shouted, "Celine Dion." What are we listening to? My heart will go on when we're trying to choke each other out. And it was a whole session as well. The entire 90 minutes was a Celine Dion song. It was like, yeah.
You thought you were busting a joke, man. I was
I
like,
thought I
nope.
was busting a joke. I was like, you know what? Let's see. And it worked out. Got really intimate that day. But yeah.
Oh man, cool. Shout out for the intro, outro music. Calvin Turner, Audrey, amazing logo. Twitter or X at Defenders UK. Instagram at TBS Videos. You can email us at tbsfurnace@mail.com. You can find us at soundcloud.com/Black no apostrophe, on all good podcasting websites and apps. The Black Furnace with an apostrophe, and that's it. This is Black Furnace signing out. Blah blah.